Hey everybody, welcome to our Tuesday edition of FreightWaves Now. I'm Emily Zink.
I'm Chad Prevost.
Exciting, we had a day off, but getting back to the swing of things. I know a lot of people want to know how the markets are doing and what's going on. A lot of stuff going on.
A lot of stuff going on. A lot of stuff was not going on for Memorial Day weekend. Hope you had a good one. Did you have some fun doing what you were doing, Emily?
I did. It was hot, and that's kind of the story. Here in Chattanooga, I was in Tampa, Florida, the heat, but also severe weather. So Nick Austin joins me. These poor people cannot catch a break.
I know. We'll talk about the plains and the Midwest in a little bit because there is going to be more flooding. There's likely going to be more flooding, especially along the Arkansas River. But we have a winter storm to talk about, even though it's the day after Memorial Day.
Yes, we were just talking about heat. Now we're talking about snow. Where are we looking right now? Where's the snow coming?
It's out west in the Rockies primarily. And it just goes to show you that Mother Nature does not always pay attention to the calendar. I mean,
not at all.
You can get strong winter storms even out in the Rockies this time of the year. But here's the Colorado Springs, Denver area, and then up here in the Wyoming, so Cheyenne up to Casper. It's mainly the high elevations. Most of the areas that are, say, around 7,000 feet and higher in elevation that'll be seeing the heavy snow. Some of those areas could see more than a foot of snow today. Could be some spots with low visibility, blowing snow as well. So some sections of I-70, some parts of I-25 as well.
Are we talking fast accumulating snow, or will this be, like you mentioned, a foot? Okay.
Gradual throughout the day, probably into the first part of the evening as well.
Okay, something to watch.
Yep. So the Weather Service has winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories all up for this region. So it's going to be kind of a mess out there. So there will be some delays. Any loads that are being moved through the Rockies are probably, their drivers are going to run into delays out there today.
Yeah, really some good information. And if you're driving out there, if you're going through the area, take it slow, like you said.
Absolutely.
Whiteout conditions.
Watch out for the
places.
signs about chain controls and all that. They'll be posting those. So, but back to severe storms, flooding. Yes, just people in the nation's heartland, just right in the middle of the country, cannot catch a break. Now, there were severe storms up in parts of the Midwest and the Northeast. Overnight. Dayton, Ohio got hit really hard by a big tornado, and there's been video of that just everywhere. But the real target area today is right here again near the middle of the country. Kansas City, Topeka, up to near Omaha and Des Moines. This whole, especially this area in red right here, that's a moderate risk for severe storms. So
are we talking hail, wind,
large
potential
hail,
tornadoes?
Likely tornadoes, especially in this red shaded area right here. So the way they assess the level of risk, the Storm Prediction Center, they do these outlooks every day and they're updated every so often. But basically on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being like the highest risk for severe storms and tornadoes, this is a 4 out of 5. So it could be a pretty serious situation for these areas here today, as well as the potential for flash flooding. Anytime you get really strong or severe thunderstorms, there's always the chance for flash flooding as well. So there could be some roadblocks out there, possibly on some interstates going through this part of the country and some areas of the Northeast again today. But this area here is probably going to be the most prone for widespread severe storms and possibly strong tornadoes. So
if you're driving in that area, definitely keep your radio on, keep your apps on your phone, everything, because you want to be weather aware, especially this time of the season.
Absolutely. Pay attention to those warnings. If you're getting them on your cell phones, and if you're using the GPS in your cell phone to have it follow you everywhere, that means you can get warnings wherever you go on your phone. So definitely pay attention to those, especially if it's tornado warnings. Drivers want to pull over, try and get to shelter as soon as they can.
Yeah, you want to be in a shelter, and you definitely don't want to get caught outside, but it happens, so you do want to keep your warnings on. Anything else going on that we need to watch out for, or is it kind of just the Heartland right now we're worried about?
Mostly the Heartland. Some parts of the Northeast, up in parts of Ohio into western Pennsylvania, you could see some severe storms, but I don't think the threat for those areas is as serious today as out in the plains. They shouldn't ignore the risk, but the risk is going to be much, much higher out here in the middle of the country.
Yeah. Those poor folks, we've been talking about it for weeks now, I feel, so.
It has been weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been almost every day they've been getting hit with either tornadoes or flooding, especially the Arkansas River is the worst right now, from Oklahoma into Arkansas. A lot of areas along the Arkansas River is where they're seeing all the flooding now. And there's been ongoing flooding in the Midwest. I mean, that's been happening since mid-March, but these new areas of flooding are mostly along the Arkansas River, and it's probably just going to keep going for days or weeks, unfortunately.
Yeah, you heard it from Nick Austin. If you live in the central part of the United States, obviously you can't let your guard down right now. A lot of severe weather taking place and crazy amounts. We're talking about winter weather, and it was the unofficial start to summer, so kind of works out weird, but as you said, Mother Nature doesn't really check the calendar. Right now we're going to go over to Chad and Donnie. They're talking about everything from the broker's point of view.
Thanks for that, Emily and Nick, for that developing situation in the heartland of the U.S. Now, as we're recovering from Memorial Day, what is going to be happening with the volume tender rejection index? Let's find out right here from market expert Donnie Gilbert. Hello.
Good afternoon, Chad.
Good afternoon.
So today is the day after Memorial Day, and our information the data that we go over measures, pretty much 24 hours behind. So right now we are on what happened on actual Memorial Day. So what we see
which is a precipitous overall drop. Kind of scary looking.
It does look very scary. It's we've been running 9,600, 9,700 in the market volumes.
Yeah.
And now we drop down to 8,100, 8,129 to be exact.
Please tell me this is just Memorial Day.
It is just Memorial Day,
Okay.
and we should see this start bouncing back up and climb back up through the rest of the week. We do expect volumes to be down compared to last year, but like I say, this significant drop is mainly due just to Memorial Day. And so on a better note, we see that our other percentages, our reefer tend to reject and our van tend to reject, stayed pretty level. So this is our van tend to reject.
The dry van stayed level.
Yeah, and it's about 4.5%. It's been kind of running between the 4% and 4.89% this entire year so far. I'd love to see it up around the 7, 8, 9%, but with the extra capacity in the markets, a lot of that extra capacity is actual dry vans, and that's been keeping those numbers suppressed. On the other hand, we see up here, this little green line, this is our reefer tender rejects. It is finally climbed up. It's around the 10% mark today, 10.31%.
Didn't seem to be too affected by the Memorial Day weekend.
It was not, and it'll also continue to pick up as we get on into June. We're getting into the more of the strong part of the produce season, which is the month of June and July. So we hope to see these pick up a little bit more. So, running over to the reefer map.
Yes.
Let's just kind of check out what's going on in the reefer markets here.
Because a lot of what we're trying to do here on this segment with you is the brokerage play, right?
Yes, and I like for the volatile markets. That's what I really love to see, where the rates are picking up, the capacity is getting tight. And I always look at a market and I always look at the surrounding markets. So you look through here, you see the Savannah and the South Georgia markets. They're 17, 18 tender rejection rates right now. You get up in the Greenville markets and the Charlotte markets, they're 12%, 13% rejection rates. And then you get into right here in the middle is Columbia, South Carolina.
What are we measuring? What's the blue is hotter? Are we looking at head hauls? Are we looking at volumes?
Well, in this map particularly, we start with white and we build up into light blues, up into the deeper blues. And all we're measuring is the reefer outbound tender rejection rates.
Oh, okay.
So here in the middle, we have Columbia, South Carolina, 34.04% on reefer tender rejections right now. That's a good hot market for produce right now, and if you have a reefer in this area, you'd like to send it to Columbia, South Carolina and that market for today. And it's probably going to stay strong because with these surrounding markets that are also in blue, that means drivers really don't need to deadhead and move their trucks very much. They don't want to deadhead to different markets. So this market again is on its own. It's surrounded by good freight, and there's going to be no help with capacity in this market.
Still strong through the middle of the country as well.
Middle of the country, still got a lot of poultry. Little Rock, Arkansas is also a very strong market. It's up in the 30%, over 30% on rejection rates. And then we can move across, and our other hot spot is up here in Oregon.
Very hot.
We're looking at Pendleton, Oregon markets, I think in the 45% range on tender rejections, and above it in Washington is 56% tender rejection rates right now. So these markets are very strong, and these markets are pretty remote up here.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot to move reefer trailers from, but Seattle, Washington has about a 5% rejection rate for reefers. So those guys need to check out their sonar maps, and they need to move their trucks east into the Pendleton, Oregon and the Spokane, Washington markets.
Because you still have, there's some connection of heated markets.
Yes.
But yeah,
and this is going to bring in, and this is going to dry up some of the capacity for those. And so this is where you see the rates are starting to pick up some. It's drawn that reefer tender rejection rate for the total USA up to about 10%, which is good. So you just got to go in and find the actual strong markets. So look in the Pacific Northwest, center of the country, and then look in the southeast, Chad, and that's where you need to send your reefer trailers.
Wow, fantastic stuff. Thank you so much, Donnie Gilbert. We are having you in as a market expert for a reason, I can tell. And now we're going to talk, Emily is going to talk with Kyle Cunningham, giving us an overview about what is happening in the markets right now.
Yeah, definitely some interesting stuff there. Right now I have Kyle Cunningham. Kyle, we are looking at the outbound tender reject index, Dallas, Texas. We usually don't talk about Dallas a lot.
Yeah, Dallas has had some really interesting stuff going on. If you look back from essentially March all the way to today, just like Donnie was saying, following the pattern of the rest of the country, you can see this volume has pretty much gone straight down.
Yeah, why is that?
You know, the warehouse is shut down. People are enjoying their time with their families. They're honoring the veterans for Memorial Day. They're enjoying the time off because, as you can see, there was a huge volume push in Dallas pre-Memorial Day. And so where we're at now, this is to be expected. What's really interesting is a big macro picture of what's going on in this market for the last few months. As you can see, there's been some extremely interesting stuff that's happened. The volume, your yellow line here, the volume's going to ebb and flow, but at this point right here, there's a divergence between the volume rising and the rejections falling. So that's telling me there's a lot of capacity in the market that's going to be able to take this volume and run with it. And so as the volume's rising, the rejections drop, and they meet up here, and they almost have a little divergence around Mother's Day when people are trying to go home. And then for the last bit of the month, for May, the beginning of the month, you can see same story, volumes up, rejections down, right about here on the 15th, 16th, call it the 16th of May. You can see the volumes in Dallas started climbing, continuously climb and climb even higher. The rejections end up catching up on the 21st. So now where we're at, as you can see, there was a little touchdown of the volume around, what do you call it, last Saturday. And then you can see they've fallen off. But the rejection line has pretty much been on a moon mission all the way to the top of the charts for the last few days. So it's going to be imperative to watch this volume and see what happens as things start picking up when the trucks start moving and the forklifts start moving again today.
So if you're in that area, if you're around the Fort Worth area, if you're in Austin, kind of continue to watch this market, because if you are a carrier, this could potentially be good for you as it continues to go up.
100%. It's imperative regardless of your position in the freight market. First, you got to look at your sonar maps, and you got to see what are the volumes like around this surrounding areas between Dallas. Is Fort Worth going to be competition? Is Houston going to be competition? If I'm a shipper and I see it at 5.2%, I still know it's a shipper's market. Below that 10%, shipper's market, broker's market. As we continue to climb, and we can see this is from the last, call it 9-10 weeks plus, the rejections are at the high point. So it's imperative to position yourself in whichever route you're in to make sure that you're getting the rate that you feel that you're bargaining for.
And so right now, as you said, it is still a broker shipper market, but it could potentially become a carrier's market. So you want to continue to watch that. How do you kind of keep a pulse on this? What should you do?
Yellow line right here. Check this out right there. You see this spike in volume right here? Look at the rejections catch up about 3 days later. The reason being is that by the time the volume spikes and these tenders come in and people understand that the volume is spiking, that's going to put a limit on the capacity. Still at right here at 3.6%, nothing huge, but any sort of uptick in rejection rates is going to be felt within the general community, whether that's over the CB radio or whether that's in the broker's office or whether that's in the warehouse. The word moves quickly. The best way to see it is right here on these lines. You can't visualize this any better fashion than right here. So watching where this continues till tomorrow is going to be absolutely necessarily imperative.
So definitely keep your eyes on the Dallas market. As always, Kyle, thank you very much for that insightful stuff. We had a lot of good stuff today. And Chad, we talked about a lot, from weather. We were talking about snow at the end of May.
Does that make it winter conditions?
That's what I was wondering. We're still calling it winter weather, but technically it's the unofficial start to summer, so we'll see if it continues that way.
Yeah, look at these market experts. Look at what we're doing. Look at this data. It is amazing what we were bringing to you. I hope you think so. Each and every business day at 4 o'clock Eastern Time. Thanks for joining us here on Tuesday. Emily, what should we be looking forward to?
We have a lot of good stories coming up. As always, check FreightWaves FreightWaves.com throughout the day, and our social media always keeps you updated, so a lot of good stuff going on.
That's right. Share the love if you would, whether you're one of the cool kids and you wanted to be on Instagram, we'd love to see you there. But also Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook, of course, we're there as well. So thanks for tuning in, and I'm Chad Prevost.
And I'm Emily Zink. We hope everyone has a great Tuesday, and I know you always say something special.
Don't worry, be happy.